Lynda, 5 to 7.
Yes. So who's ready to talk about shame after these uplifting, funny speeches? I guess I am. PhD social work researcher Brene Brown set out to study love and belonging. She got the research funding and she started asking people for their stories. When she asked for stories of love, she heard stories of heartache. And when she asked for stories of belonging, she heard stories of loss. It happened time after time. Only once in a while does someone share a story of love, and only every once in a while does someone share a story of belonging. She had to take a step back and ask a new question. What do these folks have in common? What she eventually found is that they were able to feel vulnerable. They believed in being vulnerable. They didn't really like it, but they somehow saw it as necessary. They were willing to go there. For a while, Brene thought she found the golden variable with vulnerability. But her researcher's mind wouldn't rest there, so she started asking another question. What allows for vulnerability? And what she found was shame and shame tolerance. So here's the chain. In order to understand shame, it's important to understand actually what it is and isn't, and it's easily misidentified with other difficult emotions. It's kind of similar to a couple other things. So take humility, for example. Let's say your boss blames you for something you didn't do. The response is, you jerk, I didn't deserve that. And then there's embarrassment. Something happens and you're uncomfortable, for sure. But it's a fleeting experience, and when you look back on it, it's even kind of funny. And then there's guilt. You do something wrong. The felt response is, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Then there's shame. The felt response is, I'm sorry, I am a mistake. I went to get my motorcycle license several years ago. It meant so much for me to pass. I've been riding my motorcycle for about 5 years without a license, and scared to take the test. So I enrolled a friend who'd been riding her brother's motorcycle for a couple of months without a license and needed her moral support. So we get out to the test field. We do some of the simpler things, and then some of the harder tasks come along. Here's a line of cones, and we have to do the cone weave. So you're dipping in and out, swerving around these cones. Nailed it, passed. Then comes the obstacle swerve, which is a little bit harder. You have to come bearing down on an obstacle, swerve, and come right back in line. Nailed it. Then came the sharp turn and the stop. I nailed the turn. I stopped. And just as victory was on the rise, I dropped my bike. I flunked the test. My friend, bless her heart, was so excited she couldn't curb her enthusiasm. She's jumping up and down. She's so excited. She's high-fiving the other passers. Me, my world goes dark. I start to sweat. I'm so hot, I can't stand it. I want to run away. I'm like shrinking. I can't get small enough. And there's this horrible voice in my head that's saying, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I went into a shame spiral. Looking back now, with years behind me, to give me some perspective, and having studied difficult emotions, I can appreciate that we don't take a mindful walk into shame. Something happens and we are thrown there. And this is precisely why It's so important to understand shame, to become intimate with it. This is precisely why it's important to cultivate shame tolerance. So how do you do that? How do you cultivate shame tolerance? I'll tell you the secret. It's practicing and applying the antidote, which is empathy. It's important to know that empathy is different from sympathy. Sympathy might say, "You poor thing," which means you are a poor thing. There's some judgment there, right? You might even think, "You poor thing, look at you having your problem over there." It's divisive. Empathy isn't judgmental, it's not divisive. It simply relates to the experience as a shared human experience. You may not have had the exact same external situation, but you felt those difficult feelings. You can relate. Let's go back to the chain. If you're feeling some shame, it's time to not hide, but become a little vulnerable. To reach out to someone that you trust who won't judge you, and to share your story. If you're with someone who is experiencing shame, it's important to be with them without judgment, to just hear them, and to hear them with, "You're not alone." I hope we've seen today that shame matters, and that it's not possible to delete this shared human experience. What we can do is relate to it with empathy, which is the antidote. I see you. You are not alone.